Good evening and welcome to the Garfield Heights City School District regular board meeting. This evening is Monday, March 17th, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Cox. Are there any comments? Hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Now if we could have a moment of silent reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Ms. Daniels.
If you could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the February 10th special board meeting, the February 18th regular board meeting, and the February 22nd special board meeting retreat as presented?
So moved.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Cox. Are there any discussion? Hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. We will now have the board president's report. I would like to report that the last several weeks have been an outstanding period of time in our district, demonstrating the achievements, talents, and capabilities of the students and staff in the Garfield Heights City Schools. For those who were in attendance on Wednesday, March 5th, you will attest to the new format of the State of the Schools was an absolutely awesome presentation of our school family. From the performing arts at the middle school and high school to the STEAM projects on display by the students and staff at William Foster, Elmwood, and Maple Leaf. The State of the Schools this year was a one-of-a-kind and a true showcase of the greatest aspects of the Garfield Heights City Schools. Congratulations to the principals, staff, and group advisors who helped prepare our students for this evening. Great job by all, including Dr. Reynolds and his administrative team. Next, I'd like to share that I attended the coffee talk hosted by Dr. Reynolds and Treasurer Oko this past week, and I thank everyone who attended to listen to this informative presentation and ask questions. As a new form of community outreach, the coffee talk provided an authentic, in the town, meeting the citizens where they are type of forum. It was good and it was productive. The next coffee talk will be held Wednesday, March 26th at 9 a.m. at Dunkin' Donuts. Come on out and join us. Maple Leaf Elementary School hosted representatives from the Ohio Governor's Office and the Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Browns Foundation last week as the Stay in the Game initiative took center stage along with our school district's dedication to the initiative. Students from William Foster and Elmwood were at the building for some cross-pollination of students to see and participate in the activities associated with Stay in the Game. I saw firsthand the joy and determination on the faces of the students, but also the usefulness of the Stay in the Game program. I thank the governor's representative, Dr. Christopher Woolard, who is the Chief Integration Officer at the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, along with our friends and partners at the Cleveland Browns. This was a great few weeks in the Garfield Heights City Schools, and I wanted you all to know. The community support will be essential over the next several months in order for our future as a district to be secured. Many different venues either exist or have been created for our citizens and residents to learn more about our student successes, including some of the public community outreach forums shared in this report. Get informed, and I'm confident our citizens will see just how successful our scholars are in this district. Thank you for your continued support, and this concludes my report. Are there any questions in regards to the president's report? All right, are there any other committee reports?
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Thomas?
I have a report for Cuyahoga Valley Tourist Center.
Yes.
During our February board meeting, we had our first reading of the school calendar. We announced that our Distinguished Alumni Award nominations are open, and we also recognized Jackie Arndt, our board member from North Royalton, as she received a 2025 OSBA Service and Training Award at our spring conference. We went through our retention report. I do have it with me if any of you would like to see it. It is quite interesting. So I have that here if you all would like to see it. And then we got a presentation of our 5-year academic plan, as well as our adult education customized training. During the report, they talked about how popular customized trainings are. To date, we have trained 245 employees, uptrained 245 employees in various trades. We do some of our trainings on site and some of them off site at their campuses. We talked about multi-craft maintenance being a huge focus, which is under our industrial bracket. They discussed a grant that we received to buy training equipment, and although the equipment is purchased through a grant for our adult education, our high school students still have access to those machines. And then we also discussed that we are building a 25-foot tower inside that has virtual capabilities and virtual headsets. We are adding more cybersecurity training and programming to our computer networking. And then we also discussed taking English out of our media technology curriculum in the high school. Another thing that we discussed, our tax collections are down about $250,000 in 2 years. So we had to pivot as we were looking to bring on our Parks and Environmental Resources program very soon. We have placed a small hold on launching that program until tax collections are caught up. Our student connection this month was Leah West. She's a senior at our high school and thriving in our medical administrative specialist program. She initially explored cosmetology and culinary arts, and she chose the medical administrative specialist program because it seemed fun and valuable for gaining receptionist experience. Her love for technology and socializing made it the perfect fit, and within days of starting, she knew she made the right decision. Through this program, she will get her CPR certification, her Microsoft Office specialist, and medical administrative assisting certification. She plans to enter the workforce immediately after graduation, aiming for a role in a hospital or nursing home, inspired by her older brother who works as a caretaker. One of her favorite aspects of the program is the call assignments, where she and her classmates practice real-world phone interactions like scheduling appointments and handling billing. Beyond the classroom, she has embraced opportunities through the BPA, which is the Business Professionals of America, where she enjoys networking, professional development alongside her classmates and competition. In January, she showcased her skills. She placed first place in business law and ethics, third place in health research presentation, and third place in coding. She has now qualified to compete at the state competition this month. Reflecting on her growth, she said, "I am much more on top of things this year than last. At CBCC, it's like having a job. You have to stay on top of things. I genuinely enjoy coming to school, especially because I've made great friends. We are always having fun while getting our work done. Outside of school, she balances a part-time job in the fast food industry while enjoying time with her friends, relaxing, cleaning, playing video games, and spending time outdoors with her dog. Keep up the great work, Leah." And then lastly, this Thursday, we will have our National Technical Honor Society induction after our regular board meeting, if anyone will be in That concludes.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Thomas? Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Are there any other committee reports? I have a wellness liaison report. For girls basketball, congratulations to Stacia Mobley on being selected as first team all LEL, Journey Rencher on being selected to second team all LEL, and Summer Rains for being selected to third team all LEL. Boys basketball, congratulations to our boys basketball team on advancing to the state Final Four. Congratulations to Marcus Johnson on being named LEL Player of the Year and Coach Sonny Johnson on being named LEL Coach of the Year. Ari Jones and Devon Jackson on being named First Team All-LEL, and Braylon Sullivan and Nazir Hines on also receiving All-LEL recognition. Wrestling, I am proud to announce that several of our wrestling athletes have advanced to the district tournaments for outstanding performance at sectionals. Their hard work, dedication, and perseverance have earned them an opportunity to compete at the next level. So for our district qualifiers, we had Joseph Valva, who was second place. He was a male senior. Jaden Anderson, alternate male senior. We had Mikhail Macklin, third place female sophomore, and Faith Boozer as an alternate for a female sophomore. That concludes my report. Are there any questions about the wellness liaison report? Are there any other committee reports? If not, we will go next to our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. During the month of March, we would like to recognize our invaluable school secretaries and administrative assistants. On behalf of the Garfield Heights City Schools, we are very thankful for the incredible work you do each and every day. You are the heart of our schools and the first welcoming smile, the problem solvers, the organizers, the ones who keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Your dedication, patience, and professionalism never goes unnoticed. Whether assisting staff, supporting students and families, or managing the countless details that keep our schools functioning, you do it all with grace and efficiency. Your contributions make it a meaningful difference in the lives of everyone in the school community. Thank you for your hard work, your commitment, and the positive impact you have on each and every day. A number of meaningful activities and initiatives and events have taken place since the last board meeting, and I want to share with the community these different aspects of hands-on STEAM learning. First, our gifted students at Elmwood and Maple Leaf met with the Touring Artifacts team from the Cleveland Museum of Art to study with hands-on activities. The Cleveland Museum of Arts bring ancient artifacts for students to see, and our elementary gifted team took advantage of what they had to offer by inviting a handful of students to look at and handle the artifacts. A great job to give to students and to those who are all involved. A shout out to our principals, advisors, and students who participated in the State of the School presentation on Wednesday, March 5th. Mr. Dawson with the Performing Arts students, along with Mr. Pernard with our show choir, Music Express. The performances were extremely exciting. Ms. Woodson did a great job with showing the youngest students at William Foster learning how to code, and Elmwood and Maple Leaf with their STEAM presentations. You all did a wonderful and a great job and showed Bulldog Pride extremely well. We must work with the school community to ensure that these opportunities remain perfectly intact. So thank you once again. And we also wanted to thank the governor's office for sending the chief integration officer, Dr. Willard, to see our building firsthand and to recognize that our district's dedication to the Stay in the Game initiative. Of course, this event and this initiative does not happen without the support of the Cleveland Browns. Ultimately, our students benefit from when we are pushing them to come to school and to stay in school. So thank you to everyone who's involved and made this visit from the governor's office so impactful. With that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any questions for Dr. Reynolds? All right, so moving to remarks from the public regarding agenda items, we don't have any this evening. Reports and recommendations of the treasurer. Could I get a motion to approve the financials for, February?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Oko, is there anything that you want to,
The financials for February will kind of run in with the forecast presentation. I'll touch on a little bit of that, but I would say that our collections from the county were quite high this year compared to last, given that they withheld a lot of our early advances. Other than that, things have been on schedule. Our next 3 pay month is May instead of June, so expenditures should be pretty much in line with that. The only difference, as you'll all see, and we'll talk about in the forecast, is that revenue line with state funding, which is a little bit lower than where we projected based on November's numbers. So,
thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Oko?
Madam President,
Ms. Thomas?
where will the presentation be?
here,
Um,
7.2.
7.2.
Oh, okay, so we're just
Sorry.
approving 7.1, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Yes.
Could I get roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Okay, could I get a motion to approve, the 5-year forecast March optional?
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Daniels and second by Ms. Thomas. Mr. Oko, you wanna
Yes.
walk us through?
Yes, I have a 12 slide PowerPoint. I'll try not to bore you guys with all this fun financial information. All right. So, we don't do these presentations often. We usually do our financial 5-year forecast twice a year in November and in May. We're doing a March optional as we discussed. Dr. Reynolds and our team, our administrative team, have been working through some data work since moving from Progress Book to Infinite Campus. The reason we're doing this is because our variance is a material variance in revenue from what we reported in November to what we reported to now. So it's important that as a Board of Education, we're representing to the state of Ohio that yes, we know that there is a discrepancy, we are working on it, but also we're being transparent with them, knowing that we're not waiting till May to show a huge 6-month difference in a discrepancy of that. So with that, March optional. I hope we only have to do this one time in all of our careers, but you'll see here, just July 1 beginning cash balance. When we did our November forecast, we looked at a $9.4 million cash balance at the end of this fiscal year. With the change in what we've been reporting for our student funding, with our FTE numbers being down we're looking at a $6.961 million cash balance general fund. The projected loss for the year would be $2.453 million. Again, specifically around our enrollment numbers not being what they were over time. So a few years ago, we had higher numbers, and we've seen a significant drop in trend in that sort, which plays into this as we are a heavily formula district. So this current fiscal year, as of this Saturday, we are 56% state funded, 41% locally funded. Now, if you remember in November, we were a little bit more state funded and a little less locally funded. This is including the updated property tax reevaluation. So our district got hit with one of the highest in the state at 55%. It was a real, it was one of the highest, and it was devastating for communities across the state and for us in particular. So that means that our local taxes have increased as we hit the 20 mil floor marginally, and our state funding will drop. As we continue to report a trend lower in enrollment, that shift will show that we're more locally funded rather than state funded, because every student counts for our funding. Less students you have, the shift goes on to the local community more, as the partnership between state and local is 60% local, 40% state is what they want it to be. You'll see that projected state funding includes the Fair School Funding Plan, restricted state funding. That's our special education categoricals, our English as a second language, our gifted funding, and most importantly for our district, our economically disadvantaged funding. Since we're a CEP and full Title I district, every student in our district, head count, counts as an economically disadvantaged student in the eyes of the state of Ohio. So that's why that number is a little bit more than you can see, like the state share of local taxes, which are those reimbursements. Our DPIA funding on the categoricals make up about 60% of that. Special education takes up the other portion of that, and then we have such a small level of ELL and gifted funding when it comes to FTE counts. That doesn't really make a marginal difference for us. As you can see, all other revenue is about $1.2 million. The majority of that coming in interest income, when we have money, when we get our tax settlements that sit in the bank, and then also we have a TIF payment from the city that will be expiring this year. We talked to the county, the city, so we should see a loss in some funds that way. And then the final portion of that is our threshold cost that we get every year. So our special education students, it costs a little bit more to educate them than what the state gives us. Again, we are holistically underfunded in special education as it is, but after a certain threshold, we get reimbursed for a percentage of that. It's usually about 30%. For us, it's about $250,000 to $300,000 a year. So that makes up that other revenue portion of that. I'm gonna stop for any questions there. I know I'm talking fast. Expenditures. As we all talk about, personnel costs make up the majority of our expenditures in the school district, as they do for all the school districts in the state of Ohio. You will see, though, that our personnel costs dropped under 80%, and purchase services is up 17%. The reason for that is it truly is special education costs. It's been very hard for us to maintain fiscal spending levels, sustainable levels, when we have students coming in out of district who require services that we have no possible way in this year of kind of looking at different alternatives for that. So we have to hire out, and a lot of that staffing that we have to hire out for will go under purchase services instead of actually personnel costs in-house. But with that, salaries about $27.2 million, benefits $10.12 million, purchase services are $8.2. Again, I will tell you, inflation is our worst enemy, and then special education costs and legal fees kind of round that up with that, and they kind of go hand in hand. Other expenditures, supplies, capital debt, other operating advances, transfers, about $3.8 million. $1 million of that was a one-time transfer we made into our 003 fund at the beginning of the fiscal year to cover some of the final expenditures for that stadium we put in over last fiscal year. I like this slide. It kind of shows you our historical annual revenue change and expenditure change. So you can see our change in revenue historically is only 0.44% per year. Obviously, it's negative 1.27 with this new forecast again, solely around the FTE numbers that we have, that we're reporting to the state of Ohio. Annual change in expenses, you'll see we've actually cut expenses last year, and then this year they jumped again with higher inflation and special ed costs. Our district is, I know Mr. Forte is here, but we've seen a jump in special ed as a percentage of general fund students. And when that happens, it really exhausts a lot of resources that we have truly like no control to administer in year one. Does that sound about right, Mr. Forte? So again, a 3.78% change annually from 25 to 29. That includes step changes, contract changes, anything that we can accurately project on. Again, all this is going to change tomorrow, but this is as accurate as we could have done as of this weekend. So now we're going to get into the most important part of this forecast. Let's look at our cash balance. So in 2025, you'll see we are deficit spending now, $2.453 million. We are spending more than we have taken in. By 2027, fiscal 2027, we have a negative cash balance. What does that mean for us? That means we will be in fiscal caution. So we will get a letter this week. The state will put us in fiscal caution, and we'll have to make a plan to address that within the next fiscal year. We, by law, can't have a negative cash balance. We have to either balance or have something in there. So we'll have 6.8 million, I believe it was at the beginning, and then you'll see that 6.4, we'll wipe that out pretty fast by 2027. And that is with the levy passing in May. Without the levy in May, you'll see our cash balance is very, very in the negative. We are, by that time, if we do nothing, we'll be in fiscal emergency, which is what nobody wants here. The state of Ohio will be involved in every facet of what we do over local control. But again, that's why we do this now. That's why we're doing this forecast now, so we can address the problems, concerns, and look at what we can do as a district to avoid all of that moving forward. Days cash on hand, I put this in specifically for Madam President. Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Back to that last slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at this 3 and 5 year financial outlook and where we anticipate to be, regardless of if we pass the levy or not.
Yeah.
How many schools in Ohio or schools in our area are facing similar issues?
So 26 are in fiscal caution right now. There was 6 last year, 26 in fiscal caution. There's 2 in fiscal emergency, or state fiscal emergency. One is Mount Healthy, and I believe Youngstown City might be heading there this year, but there's 26 in fiscal caution. The trend is to expect upwards of 100 districts this year, because what we have done that other districts have not is we managed our ESSER money correctly. We're one of the few in the state that's managed our ESSER, but now ESSER is out, and this is the year now where the districts that did not manage their ESSER funds, like some of our neighboring community districts, will be in the same situation in fiscal caution as we are. So the difference between what they're experiencing and what we're experiencing is that we're looking at a significant decline in enrollment. What they're looking at is they just didn't manage their one-time ESSER dollars correctly. And that's quite the difference. And they won't be doing a forecast like this. They'll just do their November or their May and move on and go into fiscal caution. Now, we have a chance to, again, work through this and be out of fiscal caution in 26 if we can make the necessary changes. Answer the question?
Thank you.
Of course. Madam President, your favorite slide, days cash on hand. We get very close to no cash in 26. 27, we don't make payroll at a negative. Again, you see the decline. It's a direct decline with the change in revenue over time. Here's the big slide. The district educated enrollment. This is our funding numbers. So butts in seat, so how many kids are in school, it does not always equal funding. There's different calculated formulas they put to each child. So if a child goes to CVCC, they only count as 0.2 for a funding rather than a 1 for us. You can see here in 2023, we are being funded for 2,969 students, 24, 2,740, and then now 2025, as of the data that we looked at, our last funding payment, it's 2,434. I always keep the trend going. But I didn't think it was necessary to put another 200 and so difference in 26 because that would be truly unsustainable loss of students for us. So the trend is a negative trend over time, but the big step jumps as you see is 23, 24, and 25. And in direct correlation with that, the lesser amount of students you have, the more like the per pupil amount will jump. So in the eyes of the state of Ohio, they're going to look at us and they're going to say, you spend $20,000 per student. In reality, that's not a true ratio of our spend, but they look at just simply our forecast and say, look, you are, on paper, you are not a poor district. You have the ability to spend $20,000 per student. The state average is 14 or 15. How can that be when they're not taking into account of enrollment trends and just the specific needs of our school district versus others? So it's a correlating trend there, and you'll see we jump significantly higher in 25 with the lower enrollment. I'm sorry it's a little blurry, but here's the annual difference over under compared to our base forecast that we submitted in November. You'll see state aid that is the culprit right there. That is the issue at hand. So negative 2.7 million, and then over 5 years we are at a negative $26 million cumulative measure, as you see at the bottom there. It will snowball fast if we don't address it. If we do nothing today, that's what that will look like in fiscal year 29. And then I'm going to jump to our expenditures. And you will see here that we have made gains in looking at cutting costs. We're doing our work to cut costs over time. You'll see a little bit of jump, about $500,000 in fiscal year 25 this year, which is less than, I think, a 2% raise would be for the whole district. So we've done our job on looking at cutting costs there. You'll see the cumulative over for expenditures is by fiscal 2029 we'll be cutting by $2.1 million. That includes the EPC teacher buyout. So that includes that cost. If we do not replace those certified staff that took the buyout, that is what this accounts for, would be a no replace plan for that. So, if this is the only slide you take away from this is the most important one. This is our simplified financial statement. The state of Ohio is going to issue us a letter after I submit this tomorrow, and it's going to be to come up with a deficit reduction plan of $2.9 million. So if you see that ending cash balance with levies, you'll see in fiscal year 27 it's negative $2.927 million. The state will require us to put forth a plan showing that we can reduce that next fiscal year, because that is when our ending cash balance with levies will show that we have no money in the bank. We're actually negative 2.9 in the bank, so we have to make that hit zero. Now, the very bottom slide is ending cash balance without levies. If our levy does not pass in May, and all data trends and variables stay the same, we will have another letter in May at a negative $10.8 million deficit that we would have to cut. The state will make us put a plan together for next fiscal year to cut that, because we cannot certify anything in fiscal 27. Right now, we wouldn't be able to certify anything in fiscal 27 regardless, but negative 2.9 million is much easier to manage than negative 10.8. It's a fifth of our budget in fiscal 27. So I know, a lot to take in. This data is as accurate as the data we pulled for our last funding payment that we submitted in for March number 1 payment. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Oko,
Madam President,
Mrs. Daniels?
what are some of the remedies we will be submitting to the state as it relates to our plan to reduce the 2.9 million deficit?
So, Dr. Reynolds and I will have to look at that a little bit more in depth, because it's not as simple as saying we need to cut this program or that program. You have to look at the real cost of the program and what it means to our district and our academics and all of that. I wouldn't say that we have something on paper for you today. I would say this is something that Dr. Reynolds and I have been talking about, but to put something in detail for you, I wouldn't want to shortchange the severity of the situation.
There's definitely more conversation that needs to be had to ensure that we can continue to educate our students. We want to make sure that we are financially sustainable moving forward. So the decisions we're going to be making is not just going to be for the up and coming years, but they're going to be decisions for several years to go.
I can recommend cuts to Dr. Reynolds, but again, I have not been in the educators, side of the work. So, and that's my role is to support and work with. And Dr. Reynolds and I have had a fantastic relationship doing that. But I think it's not as simple as cutting on paper, cutting a program or cutting personnel. You have to look at how to do it, when to do it, what's the impact of it. Because at the end of the day, it's affecting students and student outcomes and achievement and academics. And this is not something that Dr. Reynolds and I like to do, but it's something we have to do, unfortunately, at this time. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Daniel?
Yes, and in us developing this plan that the state is requiring us to develop, the effective date of it, when will we have to effectively implement that, or will we have time to remedy this deficit before implementing the plan that we submit to the state?
Yeah, so they're going to give us, it'll start in fiscal 26. So on July 1st, we'll be in fiscal caution, which means we have to be in it the whole year. So even if we fix it on July 2nd, we'll have to be in fiscal caution through fiscal 26. They will give us time to implement it because there's just no way we can implement a $3 million cut into our budget in July. I mean, it's going to take some time to implement and to look through. I would also say if we need to put a levy on the ballot, that would be something we need to put on the recommendation list to raise money to be able to afford the deficit. So that's all things that, the board will have to approve. So we'll have to bring a recommendation to you so the board can approve it. And then I know Nordonia is moving towards this pretty heavily here. So and we've been talking to them as well to see what the steps they've been taking. But, when the state gets involved like this, they will make the board approve whatever cuts are needed to make sure that deficit is gone. Unless 300 kids walk through the door on July 1st, Mrs. Daniels, that would be the easiest remedy. 300 students walk through. Fixes right there.
Madam President, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
And when you say being in this fiscal emergency and having the state take over and involve, what does that mean for a local school district?
So, fiscal emergency or?
Having the state.
Yeah, so we'll start in fiscal caution, which means local board authority, and you keep your powers and you're able to pass and they want to see cuts. Now, if it gets to the point where we are $3 million, and we have negative money in the bank account, they will put us in fiscal emergency. They will come in, they will put a state-based commission, they will strip you of your local powers. Everything would have to be approved first by the commission, second by you. So the governor will appoint a commission, the mayor will appoint folks on the commission board. They'll have to run through every contract that we want to put through. Every dime we spend will have to be approved by the commission first. It really grinds the district operation down to a halt. The districts that are in fiscal emergency right now are struggling to operate, and that's why we're doing this now, so we do not want to be in fiscal emergency. I'll just tell you that. They're very strict.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Oko?
Do you feel like we're in a place where, just addressing this at this point, that we could do what's best to ensure that we are serving our students the best that we can, and I know that that we have a challenge ahead of us, most
Yeah.
definitely, but is there, with support, a remedy to ensure that we sustain as much as we can?
Yeah, I think this is a good step forward. I think also we have been, at least in our November forecast, we did let the state know that we had some data issues. So this is not the first time that the state is seeing this, as they're not going to be overnight like, oh my gosh, Garfield Heights lost all this. No, in November we got our first payment report in our forecast. We did submit as part of our as part of the assumptions to our forecast that we are working through data issues. So we're working through that. Of course, more time is always better on these things, but I think if we would have let this go into next year and gotten a letter on July 1st, we would have been really, really far behind the 8 ball, to the point where there's probably no remedy other than significant fast cuts that would upend the beginning of the school year. At least now we have the ability to look at things and see where we can trim back, make a dent into this, and use fiscal 26 as a way to cut the full amount needed, rather than do it all and really disrupt our academics and our students and our community right away. Now again, this is simply with the levy passing. If the levy doesn't pass, that's a whole nother scenario that we will have to address. But from this is all district data that we're, if this is the data that the district has, then this is the data we have to work with. And I think it's better now than it would be to wait till July to implement this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Oko?
Madam President,
Ms. Cox?
just want clarity. You said 300 students would remedy
Yeah, so if 300 students
walked in the door?
walked in the door, we would be at that 2,740 number that we were at last year. That would basically keep us on track of where we were in November. I mean, please understand, we were within 1% accuracy of our November forecast before we looked to do this March financial option. So again, I would say our reporting financially is pretty spot on. I can get you within 1% as of the day that I'm doing it, but the numbers change every day. So, say our data gets a little bit more cleaned up over the next week, and our students come online a little bit more, say 50 or so students, that these numbers are going to change drastically. So we're going to do this again in May with, again, more accurate numbers in May, but I just think it's very important that it's such a material change that the state needs to know about it, and the board has to know about it, and the district, this is our district data, we have to be accountable for our data, and this is being accountable, I believe, and being transparent in it. And I think Dr. Reynolds.
I do have a question. Facts only.
Yes.
Since we started here, we've been attempting to not fill all our positions over time. What would a levy, passing this levy, facts only,
Yeah.
how would that assist us as a school district,
Passing it.
passing the levy?
So passing levy would allow us to look at some ancillary cuts for $3 million. We can make $3 million in cuts, but we can also look at not having to cut so deeply into staff that it affects academics on day one. Not passing the levy is significant staffing cuts, because 76% of our budget, as you just saw, is staffing, is personnel costs. So it really is to answer your question, it's all about academics. You pass a levy, we're going to be able to sustain an academic plan, a strategic plan. If you don't pass a levy, cutting 1/5 of your budget as a school district when revenue only increases less than 1% a year, it's unsustainable on every level possible. It would take some very deep cuts to do that. So the levy is that important to our school district. I'm saying important because it is important. It is the difference between a sustainable academic plan and one that's not sustainable. Does that answer your question? Or keep it facts only?
Facts only.
Madam President, I have a fact only question.
Mrs. Daniels?
And again, can you remind me about how much this is a renewal,
Yes.
no new money, and right now as a resident, about how much per year on average is a resident paying already for this, and so that,
Yeah.
for this renewal that we asked them, like, what would be?
Yeah, so this renewal, I think, is $233 per $100,000 in valuation, and don't hold me to that because I don't have the ballot language in front of me, but I can tell you a Garfield Heights resident pays 56% of their property taxes go to the school district. I would say we're about 10% lower than every other community in the state of Ohio. So our community pays more in taxes to city charters, county charters, than they do, than other communities do. We're the sixth highest taxed district in the state, and we're one of the poorest when it comes to school funding. It's not because of property taxes, it's because our community is burdened with other taxes and charters and city levies that we are not getting the same amount as, say, Bedford or Maple or Warrensville would get. 56% of a community member's tax dollars, Ms. Wanderstock, 56% of your tax dollars goes to our school system. Rather, it would be 70% in Bedford. I can't give you the number offhand because every house is different based on your valuation. But it's a 9.83 mil levy renewal. Our community only pays 87.5% of that, which means the state picks up 12.5%. So if we were to non-renew this levy and have to put the same amount of money up in November as a new levy, the community would have to pay the full 100% cost of that. Rather now, they only pay 87.5%. The state kicks in rollback and homestead exemption, so 12.5% come to us from the state that the property owners do not pay.
But this renewal, this specific amount
Yes.
is only approximately
5.35 million for the district.
but if my house was $100,000, and I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
maybe $250 a year
Yeah.
divided by 12 months, I'm paying a month. If we did not renew this, I'm only gonna maybe see a
Yes.
$20 savings a month
Yes,
on my
correct.
tax bill
Correct. Yeah.
at the most.
Yes. Correct. Yeah. And then again, numbers. I'll have to get you the actual.
I'm just
dollar
saying,
number.
I'm just.
So it is.
I just like to
Yeah.
see things more in a realistic. I know we're talking
Yeah.
56% and
Oh.
5 point whatever million, but we're just talking about right now. We're only asking for a renewal of a portion
Yes.
of our millage,
Yes.
and right now that portion, and it's money that I'm already paying. I'm paying
Correct.
approximately $20
Yes.
a month
Yeah.
towards this, and if it does not renew, I'm only gonna maybe, you know,
Yeah.
it's in that range. If my house is valued at 100,000 or whatever, is where I will see.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just math, fact speaking, it's cheaper to pass the renewal levy than it would be to fail the renewal levy and then put a new money levy on just to collect the same amount of dollars. But yes, I can get you that dollar amount, but you're correct. Correct in the logic and what you're saying.
And it's not anything new money.
No
We're not
new
gonna
money,
add
no increase in
new money.
taxes, just a renewal levy, just a renewal. We have not asked for new money in 13 years as a school district. We've made it work.
We've asked, but we just haven't been told.
Yes.
We've asked.
Well, not for operating.
Well, not
for
operating,
building,
right.
Yeah, not
Okay,
for operating
gotcha.
money. Yep. And this is what we're talking about here is operating.
Yes.
Operating. Yes, ma'am.
And, okay, I'm sorry. I do have one more fact question. Do we know about how many of our neighbors that we employ here in the Garfield Heights community? Because I know we have a substantial amount of our neighbors and community
Yeah.
members. We just don't educate the community, but we significantly employ a lot of our neighbors and community members here too, right?
I would say over half. I would say pushing maybe 60%
staff.
of our staff is Garfield Heights residents.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd say most of our classified employees, bus driver, all of them, work in our school district. We have some substantial amount of teachers that also work in our school, who live in our school district as well. So, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Oko?
Riveting numbers.
Yes. As always, thank you, Mr. Oko.
Of course. Thank you.
could I get a motion to move and waive the reading of 8.1 through 13.1?
Oh, yeah, we have to approve my forecast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So the forecast was, the approval of the 5-year forecast, March optional, was motioned by Ms. Daniels and second by Ms. Thomas. Could I get roll call?
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. All right. Now could I get a motion to move and waive the reading of 8.1 through 13.1?
So moved. Second.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Daniels. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? Ms. Thomas,
Never mind.
any questions? All right, hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Could I get a motion to move and waive the reading of 14.1 through 15.1?
So moved. Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Morrison. Are there any questions? Hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Okay, we have remarks from the public regarding miscellaneous school items. We do have one this evening. All meetings of the Board of Education and board-appointed committees are open to the public. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. Each person addressing the board shall give his or her name and address. If several people wish to speak, each person is allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that time, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Persons desiring more time should follow the procedure of the board to be placed on the regular agenda. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board present and voting. Agendas are available to all those who attend the board meeting. The section on the agenda for public participation shall be indicated. Noted at the bottom of each agenda shall be a short paragraph outlining the board's policy on public participation at board meetings. So we have Mr. Dudley who would like to speak this evening.
All right. I was once a healthy man just a couple months ago. It's so different. Last time I came, I think Ms. Thomas and Ms. Daniels were just being seated into office. So where do we stand when we speak? We'll stand right here.
I think we're okay, maybe here, if you're able.
Okay. All right. This ain't gonna take long, you know, I like long ones and everything. First, I want to congratulate our boys basketball team and Coach Sonny Johnson, who I know and stuff like that, because I love ball. Even at my age, I still play ball, and I think that I told you about that. I still play basketball. None of my sons, including the one over there, not today, but back in the day, wouldn't have beat me one-on-one. And I'm gonna say honestly, I hope that you all don't have to see physical emergency, because I am probably the only person alive in Garfield High School was in office when they first went in physical emergency, and was there through the 5 years and about 9 years afterwards. And it just takes so much out of you, and you got to make some critical decisions, and nobody's gonna love the decisions you made. Trust me, everybody's gonna point the finger. And you're talking about being elected during that time, it's harder than you could ever imagine and everything. But I'm here today because I was working on something. Like I say, in the city of Cleveland, we done raised 12 children, me and my wife, 46 years. And 9 of our kids graduated from CMSD. But as everybody know, I took the 3 grandchildren we done had for like 6 years now that we're raising. And I don't know how many other grandkids is also in the Garfield High School District now. And because of that, they're not entitled to some of the programs that kind of give them the grants to go to college in CMSD that they have, Garfield don't have over here. I spoke with Dr. Reynolds a few ago, and I told him, because up until the time I got injured, I still played ball. But I wanted to host a program where we had the citizens actually play against the Garfield Heights, Sonny Johnson. Me and Sonny went over this several times, and he thought it was a great plan as well. The dollars were not small dollars, like I showed you. We had one entity who was willing to put up $5,000 to see this game go forward. And we had Mr. Heroes. We also had Buddy over there, John and Nancy House, John House, and he actually wanted to participate in the game. We were looking at a minimum of $10,000. And like I explained to you and I showed you the 3 names, they're individual. And I didn't go to anybody else yet. And this money can be used actually to give. You take the 10,000, you figure that's gonna be 1,000, that could be 10,500, but the pot would surely grow above that. And I do want to see that, but for some reason, Mr. Oko, I could never get back from you. I went back to Dr. Reynolds, and he was saying he was reaching out to you, and you're supposed to contact me, and I went on for a long time. I never heard back from you. And I'm not here to point that you got enough on your mind right now. But the reason why I came and put it to y'all, because I figured y'all probably didn't know too, and you got a lot on your plate right now. But I think not just for the scholarship program, I think what happened at Garfield Heights, we got to get to the point that we kind of getting more involved, that you have the everyday parents out there involved in some of these. And I was in politics, but you don't see me taking pictures with nobody. But the thing is, I think we got to kind of grasp what we used to have. If you back up a little bit on time when we had Miss Thompson here, and I didn't know Dr. DePriest at the beginning of time, and Mr. O, all the way back to Dr. Stern, I didn't work with all of them, all the way up to Dr. Reynolds, who I knew from Cleveland. And I think that somewhere along the line, we just don't have the same engagement. And not saying that you are not reaching out, but sometimes you got to do things to make people want to come in. And my ideal as a program was the individual playing in the game were actually people's daddies, like I am. I'm somebody's father. Don't be fooled, I'm 64 years old, but I'm in great shape. I still shoot around in basketball. But they would put their parents out there. Kids who can brag about their dad. We actually had one woman who played for John Carroll. She wanted to participate in this program. I do want to see it go forward this year. I do want to see something happen to it, you know. Sonny's full in for it. He had even offers of practice time, but I understand the process. You all cannot take no money unless it go through him. And if I would have took it through my nonprofit, you know, we do the Black History, everything else. Anybody know you got a nonprofit, you take money like that, you got to have an administrative fee. Meaning I would have to take some of that money. And I didn't want to take no money. As I explained to Dr. Reynolds, I wanted you all to get all that money. So I'm kind of looking forward that would be something to roll down the road to kind of get them, maybe get the families engaged and everything. It can become an annual event. Even as I outgrow it, it still can continue on because that's a lot of money. 500 can buy books. 1,000 can help take care of some room and stuff. And I know also down, we realized that as the Board of Education get cut down in DC, money's going to be cut coming here. We know the trickle-down effect, and it's coming. And I'll offer you the same help that I offered to the city. I know we got problems going on with the kids. Your job is not to raise children, your job is to educate children. I do my best, like my sons know that they had a bus stop. We had a little situation in front of my house. I didn't have to call nobody. My son was home, get ready to go to work. I went out, I took care. Some of the kids you can approach and you can talk to. When I didn't feel too good toward the evening, same thing would escalate. I didn't feel like going out, and I said, well, there's a little crowd on my, let the police handle it, but they had their hands full. And I told the dispatcher, and verifiably it was showed that I said I would go out and take care of it. And what I did was just a good conversation to the young men, and they went on their way. But we're dealing with a different type of group of kids, a different type of breed of children. But the main thing, we gotta stay focused on the ones as much as possible that we can educate. You're not gonna save them all, but you can save most of them. But my main point is this time that now you know who I am, and I know who you are, And I asked that the board kind of support me on this here. It's gonna take about 2 more months. I got pins, and I stepped in that pothole. You saw on Turney Road, was on social media at the Turney Town. And I ripped my ligaments and I tore the bone up my feet. So I got pins and screws and ligament repairs just from stepping in a simple pothole. But anything I can do to help y'all out, I don't mind doing it. I do not care to be a school board member. I don't raise too many children. We got 46, 47 grandchildren. I just like seeing children in passing. But like I said, let's try to make that happen this year. I know he had a lot on his table. We couldn't get to it. But I think it would be a good thing to do this year to kind of build it up, to build these parents up. My team is not small. Actually, we have 14 members. At that time, it would be 20 members coming up. So that's 20 parents coming out of these homes. 20 parents, if they double household, that's 40 people in support of a vote. 40 people, if you know 5 people apiece, that's 200. And we know the numbers were not tremendously separated. But we got to build back the faith. It's all about faith and confidence, you know. It's all about building back in faith. And I wish you all the best. And like I said, if I can do anything to help you, I will. And like the main thing I'm here down, that I do want to see that game happen between us and Sonny, because I do want to talk crap to him like we talk all the time, you know, and everything. But I'm not going to beat y'all down. Like I said, I've served my time in government before, and I just don't want to see y'all go down. I don't want you to have to go to no physical emergency. So I'm going to wish you guys the best and everything.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you for being here this evening.
I'm going to have to leave because I'm got this conference foot. But I appreciate the time speaking.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, safe.
Careful.
All right, take care.
At this time, we are going to enter into executive session at 7:03 to consider personnel matters in regards to public employee evaluation and compensation and preparing for collective bargaining per Ohio Revised Code Rule 3358, 17-1-04.2. So we will enter into, I need a motion to enter into executive session at 7:03.
So moved. Second.
And that, it was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Mrs. Daniels. Could I get roll call?
Yes. Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas, Ms. King.
Yes. There will be no action after we adjourn from executive session. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be, our special board meeting will be held on March 7th at 6 p.m. And our April board meeting will be on April 14th at the high school at 6 p.m.
You said.
April 7th. All right, we will be going into executive session.